Welcome back after the break to Ion South Asia. Sanjeev, now we're in our business segment here, and we are coming to one of the most interesting stories of the week.
That's
I think you would find this very interesting. There was an Indian tailor in New York City that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and he has now pleaded guilty to $1.7 million tax fraud.
That's right.
And when I read the story, I was actually very surprised because we had covered this business several months ago, as this business was very instrumental in some charity efforts.
That's right.
Back in November, I believe.
Back in November, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the reason we talked about this individual, Mohandas Ramchandani, because during Sandy, right after Sandy, he had donated suits to the people who were actually seeking, you know, a job and looking for a job. And then he had donated a number of suits, a couple of hundred suits, to the people to help them out after Sandy. So that was a remarkable thing that he had done to help out the community, and it was a charity, and it was very well received by everyone, and everyone praised him.
Yeah.
At that time, I remember talking about this tailor and how superb you know, his tailoring work is, how successful his business is, and his clientele includes a long list of athletes, starting with Patrick Ewing, ex-New York Knicks basketball player. And now this story comes up that he cheated $1.7 million in taxes. He said he didn't know that. His attorney says that he admitted mistake as soon as authorities questioned him. He realized that he hadn't paid tax, but you know, cheating is cheating, and a mistake is mistake.
Right.
So he's going to pay a big price for it. I think he's scheduled to sentence when, in September?
Yes, sometime later this year. Actually, you know what's interesting? He has such a high-end tailoring business.
And this tailoring business known as Mohan's Custom Tailors.
Yes,
it's a
Mohan
worldwide
Custom
known,
Tailors.
and his name is Mohan Bhai Ramchandani.
Yes.
Came from India back in 70s, right? Came from poor family, and he really worked his way up. He has actually a studio right across the street from Grand Central Terminal.
Right.
And that is doing a super business.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, he actually was bringing in revenue of about $28 million.
That's right.
And, you know, that's a huge amount, but on his tax returns, he had only reported $5.6 million in his revenue. So that's a huge disparity there. And of course, he was questioned by tax authorities. Now he's, if convicted and found guilty, he has agreed to serve a prison sentence of about up to 3 years, and he would have to pay back $5.5 million in back taxes and penalties within 2 years.
And the main center of the story is a whistleblower, an ex-employee of Mohan's Custom Tailors, Vijay Tharwani, who actually alerted authorities and let the authorities know that there is something going on. And there was already some kind of deal was made between authorities and Vijay, that Vijay is going to get 1.1 million out of Mohan's
His
repayment.
penalties.
Exactly.
Right.
1.1 million he's going to get it, and he blew the whistle. That's when authorities found out that he had cheated on taxes.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting to see whether his business will actually suffer from this whole case, you know, from this publicity, the bad publicity that's coming with it. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think his customers, you know, his high-end customers, celebrities are really going to be affected
I think
by that?
No, I don't think so. The business will go on. Business will continue. I'm sure he's got very qualified, you know, tailors and his assistants and everybody, and they will look after it. It will have an effect for a while, but eventually it will go on. You know, considering if they continue to do job well, he's going to be behind bars, let's say, up to 3 years. We don't know the exact term of sentence.
Right.
But I'm telling you, you could buy a lot of suits for 1.7 million.
Yeah, well, you know, it is interesting though, because when it comes to the owner's integrity being compromised when he's kind of cheating on these taxes, customers might start to think, okay, well, if he lies in this area, what else might he be lying about? Does this mentality translate into the way he makes his products and those sorts of things? But his lawyers, however, and some other authorities say, you know what, just keep his business open.
Correct.
And
because it's a very successful business.
Yeah, it's a very healthy business. Just keep it open, let them do business, and obviously they have other people managing things.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah. Well, last week it was Cadbury. Now it's Ramchandani. So, well, next we have on this fraud list is an Indian American firm named Dibben Solutions of Texas, and they are now indicted for visa fraud.
Right.
H1B visas. So this company has been indicted by federal authorities for using H1B visas to create a low-cost workforce in the U.S. In their minds, what it means is hiring foreign workers, sponsoring them for H1B visas, saying that they work full-time, but really, they're only paid by the hour when they receive work from third parties.
That's right.
So instead of receiving an annual salary like they're actually filing with these tax authorities, they are kind of used as an as-needed basis.
And on a consulting basis. They were mainly
as a consulting basis. And of course, they feel like this reduces their overhead and all these things. And so, the visa people are the ones who are losing the most on this issue, the immigration department and the government. So of course they're not very happy about this. Do they actually mention what would be their penalties?
I was just going to say that it doesn't mention penalties. It doesn't even mention any other details, how many workers or how long they've been doing it. It doesn't say anything except the fact that this firm has been indicted for H1B visa fraud.
Well, this scheme actually has a name where
benching.
They have,
That's a famous word.
Benching.
That's a famous word in the world of IT, benching. What bench are you sitting on?
Right. And it seems like, whoever is not being used, whoever is in a non-productive status will kind of, be benched, I guess. So it seems like a lot of companies are kind of getting into this visa fraud these days,
Or almost all kinds of fraud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially tax fraud, though.
Yeah.
Well, all this.
And we have one more fraud story coming up in a short while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you actually have that story?
Well, I mean, it might as well just continue with this one, as we are on a spree of fraud stories. This is about a New York woman charged with keeping maid as a slave.
Oh wow!
Right,
okay.
and this woman.
That's more like a crazy story.
Yeah, this woman living in Mansion, I think in upstate New York.
Yes.
Her name's Annie George. And then, she's charged and convicted for keeping an illegal person in a house in the USA, where I think he made her work and do everything, where she owed her actually $317,000 in salaries, and versus that, Annie George paid her only $26,000.
Right. And Annie George is no poor woman either.
Oh, no.
She had 3 mansions.
Exactly.
Okay, so this woman, the servant's name is Valsama Matai, and she was being used as a servant to guard, work at her third home.
Right.
And so she was an illegal immigrant, and Annie George says that she has no idea that she was an illegal immigrant. But she brought her, she had her work for her, and she said she never considered her an employee, which basically means this woman was working 17-hour days with no time off, no sick leave. She was made to sleep in a closet while she worked in a mansion, which is crazy. But what was interesting is that Annie George says she didn't know she was her maid was illegal. But in a phone conversation with the maid's son, she actually revealed that she knew about the whole thing.
Exactly.
And she was kind of, I guess, bragging about it, like that she had employed an illegal servant. The son cleverly taped the whole conversation. Secretly, he had been kind of confiding in federal authorities, and now, you know, she's kind of in trouble.
Big
Annie
trouble.
George faces up to 10 years in prison.
That's why I say big trouble.
Yeah.
And
big trouble.
I think her rights on one of the mansions has been forfeited, so she can't even claim an ownership on one of the mansions that she owns.
Right.
So I mean, but you know, a story doesn't say anything how she became rich, or what actually their family business is, or whatever it is, where and how they acquire so much wealth.
Yeah, it seems like she had a very rich husband.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, I think a lot of the wealth was kind of in the businesses that they did. But yeah, 10 years in prison and $250,000 fine. But you did mention that she owes this maid $370,000.
Exactly.
Is that ever going to be paid out? You know, we don't know.
Sure, it will. It will be paid out.
Yeah.
Believe me, it will be paid out.
Well, we sure hope so, because, you know, this is a clear injustice being committed.
It will be paid out, yes.
Yeah. And, you know, there's this custom of having servants in the house all the way from India.
Okay, see, here's the thing. I'm sure that the servant must be paid and will be paid out $317,000. But now, after this case, will she become a legal citizen of US, or what will happen?
That's a very interesting question.
What will happen to her status? Will she be, you know, sent back to India, or will somebody file for her
I think
status?
it all depends on current laws, because as we know, the Obama administration is kind of working on these immigration reform ideas.
But who's going to follow up?
It seems like those sorts of rules, making her, you know, a citizen and all this stuff, isn't quite there yet. So who knows? You know, she could be deported as an illegal immigrant.
No, but she could say that it's not my fault. My employer was supposed to file papers, and I had no clue about it until I found out that my employer kept me in the house in the country illegally, and I had no clue.
I think it also depends on if Annie George actually brought her here, or whether she came on her own. So that's another issue. But, you know, it's very sad that, you know, we have Indians coming from India becoming Indian Americans, and they kind of live the American dream. They accumulate all this wealth, and then they kind of go back to these very unequal customs where they're employing these servants, kind of treating them like slaves. That's how the U.S. terms this whole thing.
See, real punishment of this, you know, situation is, and what she should be. She's convicted, and she could get up to 10 years in prison, right?
Yeah.
And I think after that prison term, let's say if she gets 10 years, she should be given another 10 years to work as a servant.
Oh, well.
That would be
you know what?
Appropriate.
Reform is always good.
Right.
Right? So that's what prison is for, let's say. All right, so we have all this talk of fraud. I think we're done with our fraud stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
To the viewers of Eye on South Asia, that was the last fraud story of the day that we have for you.
Yeah, but we do have a very interesting educational story here.
Yes.
An Indian American online tutoring guru says that India can help educate the world. So we're talking about Harry Aurora from New York. He is the CEO of iTutor Inc., and he has been presenting his ideas on a panel discussion. Last week he did at Harvard India Conference as a Harvard Business School. And the theme of the discussion was India versus India, local growth or global growth.
Right.
And Aurora has talked about the future of online education and really just how to develop India's Silicon Valley. And he really believes that India has a lot to bring when it comes to bringing talent and technology to create better education from an online perspective.
And this Mr. Harry Aurora is actually India-born, and last month he merged the eTutor Inc. that he founded with iTutor Inc.
Okay, so they're two separate companies that he actually founded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, the iTutor's decade of online tutoring experience with the premier online interactive, you know, whiteboard technology of the eTutor.com. So that's what he merged them together.
Yeah, this interactive whiteboard technology, it's like all the buzz now. You know, it's it's like at the forefront when it comes to collaboration
Right.
online and education and those sorts of things. It's also permeating work environments as well.
Sure.
Last week we talked about Sugata Mitra.
Sugata Mitra.
And his
Cloud
bold,
technology.
his bold new ideas, schools in the cloud, where students could really teach each other about exploratory methods. And if you add this technology component to it, with the interactive whiteboards, online, etutor.com,
It just
I think,
becomes so interesting.
yeah,
It's
I
like-
think it's a great
it's
opportunity.
beyond imagination.
Yes. So if students or tutors want to check out his service, Aurora service, they can actually go to itutor.com, and there's a whole range of subjects going from K through 12 grade school,
Right.
and they can really just learn about anything pretty
That's
much.
right. Yep.
So that's a great story, and it's a great story actually to end our show on as
That's
well.
right. Good. Absolutely.
All right, so that's all the time we have for this week's show. Keep watching us on Crossings TV week after week. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. Just search for Eye on South Asia. So until next week, I'm Bhavna Vannan.
And I'm Sanjeev Pandya. See you all next week.
We're going to take a short break, but stay tuned for Anjali Sharma's Personality of the Week.